Sup? So I am making a video, probably going to be multiple parts, in hopes of helping somebody installing Megasquirt on a car with little support. There's no bass tune you could find, and lack of documentation that's specific to your vehicle. And if you're having trouble getting the car started, getting proper signals and such, I'm gonna walk you through how I do it every time, and I learn more every time. So this is just my version. I'm trying to be as detailed as possible. I wish other people would be as detailed so I wouldn't have to troubleshoot so much. Um, I'm gonna walk you through the steps, trying to start from the beginning. Um, so let's say you have the car and it still runs on the factory computer. The car that I was dealing with, my personal daily driver, my daily beater is a B14 97 200SX. So it's got the 1.6. Completely stock car. Reason I even started Megasquirting this car is because I had a lean running issue. Mid-load, it would ping and ping and ping. It was either gonna be a mass airflow sensor, it could be an injector issue, I didn't know. I knew it wasn't a fuel pressure issue, I checked that. So I was blaming it on the mass airflow sensor. It could even be an oxygen sensor, giving a false reading, making the car run lean, except at wide open throttle when it goes open loop that it runs fine. I don't hear any pinging. And somehow I found that converted to Megasquirt would be a cheaper solution than buying replacement sensors for the car every time one goes out. So starting with a fully running car on the factory computer with OBD2, OBD1 would be more older tool than this. A simple code reader live data recorder will give you timing advance reference from the factory computer. So you're not gonna have a bass tune anywhere on the internet, right? So you're gonna have to make your own. This is gonna give you ignition timing that the factory computer is running on that motor. So you're gonna wanna copy that over. So you're gonna want it on a cold start. What timing is it commanding at cold? As it warms up, you start recording those numbers. And when the fans come on with the AC on and off, you go for a drive, you record cruising timing, wide open throttle timing, deceleration, part throttle, part load, all that stuff. You either record it with your phone, a camera, or you just start writing things down. Then you transfer those numbers over to a timing table for different RPMs for your Megasquirt project. I pulled up a Megasquirt 2 project here, even though I built a Megasquirt 1. So you're going to transfer your timing numbers here. So there's your bass tune. It's going to be a copy of the factory. Next thing you want to do is, which very, very few people would even go to the trouble of doing this. I never have, but I'm going to start. Injector dead time. I've learned from many builds that I should have been doing injector dead time, being more accurate about it, or actually figuring it out. If you have Megasquirt 2, you can use the actual Megasquirt 2 to figure it out by using the injector test mode. With this window here, you can actually simulate a fuel injector machine, a machine that measures flow. So a flow test machine. This is it right here. This is your settings, and the Megasquirt 2 is the brains behind it. You got to set up some beakers, but you can do it with the rail lifted up off the car. You don't need beakers. You just need to squirt fuel somewhere into something. And you're going to set your pulse width at the bare minimum and start creeping it up until the injector just starts to spray. And from what I read, which makes sense, that would be your dead time, the delay. So you would insert your pulse width here, starting very low, maybe a 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, keep going up, 0.5, 0.6. The standard dead time is default 0.9, which is what I've run for many years. It's not always 0.9. If you get it right, car runs smoother, more efficient. So you work your way up until the injector just starts to spray by lifting the rail off the car. Again, this is with the Megasquirt 2. You won't have this with Megasquirt 1. So if you want to get that critical and you happen to have a Megasquirt 2, you're in luck. This is with your Megasquirt hooked up to your injectors, key on power, and with the fuel pump on. That's about it. That'll get you your dead times. Put it all back together. You're gonna want to have it running on the factory computer so that you can check idle valve frequency that the factory computer commands from the idle valve. So on my Nissan B14, I figured out the frequency is at 160 hertz. I did that with the O-scope. I figured out the frequency at 160 hertz while it's still running on the factory computer. It's a constant frequency, it doesn't change. I tested that by revving the motor, it did not change. So you're gonna put that in one of these menus and then play with the pulse width to raise or lower your idle. So you need that from the factory computer. Next, if you're gonna be driving solenoids, boost solenoids or VVT solenoids. In this car, I only have one solenoid I wanted to drive, and that was the VVT for the exhaust fan, which is either on or off. It's full on under 1200 RPM and off at above 1200. So for that, I check it with a clamp meter. So the clamp meter is going to wrap around the signal wire for the VVT solenoid or whatever solenoid you're running, boost solenoid or whatever. You actuate the solenoid by applying power and ground to it, checking how much current runs through the wire. Once you know how much current, write it down. You're gonna need that when you're building the Megasquirt, or if it's already built, you may need to mod it. If you want to drive that solenoid, you got to make sure that the transistor inside the Megasquirt is powerful enough to drive it directly. I'm running an old school Megasquirt for an old school car. This is built in 2001, the car's 97. So the next thing, get you started, keep on going would be the next step. Checking the signals for your crank and your cam. In my case, right off the distributor, you have a cam and a crank signal. I am not gonna run full sequential, so I wanted to run just basic trigger off of the cam sensor. So Megasquirt is expected to see a crank sensor for four cylinder would be 4 pulses. So 4 pulses for each cylinder. Being that I'm getting it off the distributor, that's running at half the speed of the crank. That means it's running half the speed. You're gonna have to double up on your injections per cycle. So squirts per engine cycle, this would have to be 4. Well, here's my tune actually. Let me load it up real quick. And for a 4-cylinder running the Megasquirt off of the cam sensor, there it is. Number of cylinders, number of injectors, 4 squirts per cycle. I got it on alternating. So I'm running off the cam sensor, which is a negative square wave. That's what's pulsing out of it. How do I know? I used a O-scope to graph what's coming out of the distributor while it's running on the factory computer. I'm getting a negative square wave. That's not good enough for Megasquirt. It needs to see a positive square wave. So to convert that from negative to positive, you're gonna need a pull-up resistor. So this is the pull-up resistor mod for a green board Megasquirt, version 2.2. That resistor mod is jumping from the banded ed of D9 to the non-banded ed of D5. This is a 470 ohm, 12 volts from here, jumping to there. So when you get a ground pulse from the CAN sensor coming in here, it is converted into a 12 volts through this. This little pink jumper from XG1, XG2 is a ground jumper for the chip. So this whole circuit here is the ignition input section. I also have that guy jumpered. It's one resistor that doesn't need to be a resistor, it just needs to pass through. So this is gonna be the first part. I'll make another one and continue on.